You are going to love this birth story episode. Welcome to the All About Pregnancy and Birth podcast. I'm Dr. Nicole Calloway Rankins, a board-certified OBGYN who's been in practice for nearly 15 years. I've had the privilege of helping over 1,000 babies into this world, and I'm here to help you be calm, confident, and empowered to have a beautiful pregnancy and birth. Quick note, this podcast is for educational purposes only and is not a substitute for medical advice. Check out the full disclaimer at drnicolerankins.com/disclaimer. Now let's get to it. Hey, real quick, before we get into this episode, my new and improved online birth course, The Birth with Power Pathway, is coming in May. If you want to feel calm, confident, and actually prepared for your hospital birth, this is for you. The best way to be the first to know when it drops, join my email list at drnicolerankins.com/email. Hello there. Welcome to another episode of the podcast. This is episode number 135, and I am so glad that you have decided to spend some of your time with me today. On today's episode of the podcast, we have Bekah. Bekah and her husband live in rural Lancaster, Pennsylvania. They own and operate a tree and landscaping company that they started together shortly after they got married. She handles the office side of the business while fulfilling her lifelong dream of being a full-time stay-at-home mom to their 2 kiddos. They have a 4-year-old boy and a 1-year-old girl. Now, Bekah comes on to share her 2 birth stories, and it's really important to hear both because we're going to hear about the night and day differences between the 2. Her first labor she describes as a very long, rough experience that was full of interventions, and her second birth was an incredible, redemptive, medication-free experience that made her view birth in a whole new light. So we're going to get into all the juicy details of how her first birth, she had an epidural. She pushed for 4 hours. Her second birth was quite different. This one was unmedicated. She only pushed for 15 minutes. She shares how she used things like affirmations, the importance of mindset, having a playlist, listening to birth stories, how she thought about pain management differently for her second birth, and how those things made such a difference in her experience. Now, everything that Bekah is going to talk about what improved her experience the second time around are things that I teach and things that you can learn inside the birth preparation course. The birth preparation course is my signature online childbirth education class that gets you calm, confident, and empowered to have a beautiful birth. It especially focuses on giving birth in the hospital. So, after you listen to this episode, if the experience that Bekah had sounds good to you, then check out all the details of the birth preparation course so you can learn some of those techniques too. It's incredibly affordable, packed with information. So check out all the details at drnicolerankins.com/enroll. All right, let's get into the birth story episode with Bekah. Thank you so much, Bekah, for agreeing to come onto the podcast. I'm super excited to have you talk about your birth stories. And this is going to be a little bit different because we usually just talk about one, but I think in order to really get a full picture, we have to talk about both of your births.
Yes, I'm excited.
Yeah. So why don't you start off by telling us a little bit about yourself and your family, if you'd like.
Sure. Well, thank you for having me on. I listened to so many birth stories and I never thought I'd get to share my own. So I'm super excited to actually share mine. But yeah, my name's Bekah. I'm 29 years old, married to my husband, Dan, for going on 7 years now. We have 2 kiddos. My son, Thaddeus, is 4 years old, and my daughter, Arabelle, she just turned 1 in March. We live in rural Lancaster, Pennsylvania, in farm Amish country. And
wow.
My husband, yeah, it's beautiful. My husband and I, we shortly after we got married, we started a tree and landscape company together. So I actually used to work with him every day until I got pregnant. And now I stay at home with the kids and I do all the office side of the business.
Love it, love it, love it. And I love their names, by the way.
Oh, thank you. Yeah,
Yeah.
we wanted something unique.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. So why don't we start off by having you tell us a little bit about your first pregnancy? How was your first pregnancy for you?
Sure. It was great. Well, when we first decided to get pregnant, our very first pregnancy ended in a miscarriage, an early miscarriage
Mm.
around 6 or 7 weeks. So like once I got that taste of being pregnant, oh my gosh, I wanted to be pregnant so bad. So like we tried for about 8 months and it felt like forever. I know that's not a long time. A lot of people wait longer, but it felt like a really long time until I got pregnant again. And so when I did find out I was pregnant, I was just like over the top excited, and none of the pregnancy symptoms bothered me. I was really
I
sick.
can totally understand that. Yeah,
Yeah.
it took us it took us I always feel bad when I say this, but it took us 6 months to get pregnant with our first one, and I felt like I was gonna die.
Yeah,
Like,
it feels so long.
yes, and I was like like, why is everybody else getting pregnant? And
Mhm.
I was not the like kindest person, I would say.
No,
It was
I know.
stressful. So I totally relate that. I know lots of people have lots more struggles, but it can be hard.
Yeah. Yeah, and all you see is pregnant women all of a sudden,
Yes,
and everything is babies, and yeah.
everywhere. Yes. Let's talk about something most pregnant women aren't getting enough of: omega 3 DHA. The recommendation is over 200 milligrams a day, but less than 5% of pregnant women in the US meet that. That's one of the reasons I love Ritual's Essential Prenatal. It has 350 milligrams of vegan DHA plus other key nutrients like methylated folate and choline to support baby's neural tube development. As an OBGYN, I appreciate that Ritual goes beyond the basics. The formula is science backed, third party tested for heavy metals and microbes, and every ingredient is traceable. And the delayed release design, it's gentle on the stomach, something that really matters, especially if there's trouble with nausea during pregnancy. You deserve to know exactly what you're putting into your body, especially when it comes to prenatal multivitamins. And with Ritual's dedication to traceable science and sourcing, you always will. See for yourself with 25% off your first month at ritual.com/Dr. Nicole. Start Ritual or add Essential Prenatal to your subscription today. That's ritual.com/Dr. Nicole for 25% off your first month. Yes.
Yeah.
So you finally got pregnant and everything went okay with the pregnancy?
Yeah, it was very smooth. Of course, like I was always worried just because I had a miscarriage. Like every little feeling, every time I went to the bathroom, like I was just always
Mhm.
scared of that happening again. But
Mhm.
it and I was really sick the first trimester, like throwing up all the time. But I didn't care. I was just so happy. Like my husband took pictures of me with a bucket just sitting there. Like I carried this little trash can around, but I was just like so thrilled.
Aw,
So
I love it.
but yeah, it was good. The one thing I'll mention because it has a little bit to do with later on, my dad
Mhm.
was really sick during my pregnancy. He had cancer,
Mm.
and it was like the worst of it was towards the end of my pregnancy. So I feel like my pregnancy went really fast just because there was a lot of like hospice visits and running him to appointments
Oh,
and stuff like that. So
that's really tough. That is really tough. Yeah.
yeah.
So what was your prenatal care experience like?
Yeah, so I went through a group of OBs and midwives. It's actually the same one my mom used for my last few brothers and sisters, and their main office is actually like connected to a women's and babies hospital. So, yeah, it was just a bunch of OBs and midwives. You didn't see the same one for every appointment. There was I don't even know how many, but there was a lot of them. So I saw someone different each appointment. And it also meant I didn't know who was going to deliver my baby, just whoever was on call.
Right. Gotcha, gotcha. So what did you do to prepare for your birth for the first one?
Honestly, I think that's where I went wrong with the labor. I didn't do Really anything. I didn't
Mm,
listen to any birth stories. We did do a class through the hospital. The hospital offered like a tour and a couple weeks of classes one night a week. And it was fun and all, but like as far as I knew about birth and giving birth, I was just like, it hurts, you get an epidural, you have your baby. Like that's the extent of what I like knew about it. And when the classes, they did talk about like going unmedicated as an option, but I already knew in my head like, oh, it's going to hurt, I'm going to get an epidural and
gotcha.
and everything will be fine. So like I wish I would have like looked into it a little more, but I did no research or anything. So
Gotcha. And, I forgot to say, do you feel like people were kind? Did they treat you well during your prenatal care?
yeah, they did. The appointments were pretty fast. It was just,
Mhm.
your weight, check everything quick. Um, like now looking back, I've heard midwives take a little more time, but overall, I mean, I didn't have anything to compare it to, so I was happy with it.
Yeah, gotcha. So was there anything that you wanted for your birth besides getting an epidural, it sounds like?
Yeah, I just didn't want it to hurt. No, not really. I was just so excited to have a baby. It's what I always wanted since I was a kid. I always wanted to be a mom. So yeah, I
Yeah.
was just super excited. And yeah, like I said, it was all new to me. So I didn't have any expectations or anything yet.
Gotcha. So then tell us, it sounds like the pregnancy was okay, but maybe the labor and the birth part wasn't as great. Is that fair to say?
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Yes.
so why don't we get into that? Tell us what happened with your first labor and birth.
Yeah, so around so my son was due on June 15th and my dad actually passed away on June 1st. So
Oh, wow. Okay.
yeah, so like the last few weeks, like I said, it was just a lot of like, spending time with him and everything. And it was such a weird thing, like being excited about this life, but also like mourning this life that's leaving. It was just like a weird time. But so I had my 39-week checkup a couple days before his memorial service, and I had my OB. I asked her to check me just to make sure, like I wasn't going to go into labor during his service. I really wanted to make his service, so she checked me, and when she did, it hurt so bad, and it wasn't normally like that, and as soon as I left, like when I got home, I started like spotting, and I realized over the next like day or so, I had started losing like parts of my mucus plug, and
Mhm.
I don't know if she like stripped my membranes without asking or accidentally, or I'm
Mm.
not sure, but like
Mhm.
I heard that it really hurts when they do that. So
Yeah.
I think she kind of like jump started labor or something just by checking. But so like I got through his service and everything, but I was like feeling these um like pressure and it felt like Braxton Hicks, but it was like kind of getting a rhythm to it over the next couple days. And so I'm pretty sure I was having contractions like those 2 days after my appointment off and on. And so then it was a Saturday morning. I woke up and went to the bathroom and I like went pee and I felt like I continued like I was peeing myself
Uh-huh.
and I was like, what is happening? I'm not actually peeing right now.
Yes.
um so I called them and I was like, I don't know what's going on. I don't know. They actually told me like you probably are peeing yourself, which like at the time I wasn't sure if it was my water or not, but they kind of dismissed it. So my husband and I, we went on with our day. We actually went and got supplies for a job we had, and it was just a normal day, but I was still feeling like I was having like contractions and they were getting like stronger all throughout the day. So that evening, my husband was working and I was home alone, but I was just like really uncomfortable. So I went for a drive. I got some ice cream and a movie, and I was just hanging out watching it. But like, I just couldn't like sit still, and I didn't even know why. And well, of course, I was in labor and didn't realize it. And
Right.
I went for a walk and called my mom, and she's like, if your water broke, you really should be in there if that was your water. So I called them again, and they told me to come into triage, and I went in and they did that test where I guess they see if it was your water or not.
Uh-huh.
And they said it was. And I was only 1 centimeter dilated after like 2 or 3 days of like these weird contractions.
Right.
So at that point, they decided they had to like induce me since I wasn't progressing on my own, and yeah, I was only 1 centimeter. So they said they're going to start Pitocin right away, and because like I trusted them and didn't know anything about anything, like now I know there's other options to like
Mm-hmm.
more naturally induce labor, like fully bald and things like that. But I was just like, okay, whatever whatever you gotta do. So, yeah, we got to our room and they started the Pitocin and, my hubby, I forgot to mention, I drove myself there and he met up there from the job.
Okay.
And so he getting like the bags and everything and, went home to get his own stuff and came back and, we just like settled in for the evening. And, that was around like 4 p.m. So they got the Pitocin started, and that really, like, right away, I started feeling contractions over the next few hours, and they were getting stronger and stronger. And like, I know now that Pitocin contractions are so much worse from what I hear than just regular contractions.
Yeah, I think they are.
Yeah, I've heard they're way more intense. So but also I didn't have anything to compare it to, but
Sure.
yeah, they were getting worse and it was late and my husband was just beat because it was a long week and he had just been working. So he was sleeping and my contractions were getting worse and worse and like I didn't know what to do because I had no like preparation or coping or anything, no breathing
Mm.
techniques or anything. So
Right,
I'm just
right.
like laying there like not knowing what to do and I was trying to wake him up, like call for him, but he was so out. I was actually like throwing things at
Oh.
him trying to get him to wake I felt bad, but yeah, he wasn't waking up. But anyway, I got I got the nurse in and they checked me and I was like 4 or 5 centimeters and I was like I'm ready for an epidural, um, and yes, they started that whole process and sometime in the middle of the night I got the epidural and then everything went away. Like I felt great and about an hour or so later, all of a sudden I was just laying there watching TV and all of a sudden I started feeling like really sick and like dizzy and lightheaded and
Mm.
like I was gonna pass out. Like I couldn't even like stop myself. It felt like the room was closing in. So I like pressed the button for the nurse and I was like, I'm about to pass out and my blood pressure had like completely tanked. And so they gave me I think it was ephedrine or something
Yeah,
like that.
you got it. Yep.
Yeah, to get my blood pressure back up, and then it happened again. It was the scariest thing. Like, I I was terrified because like I couldn't control myself. Like I didn't want to like pass pass out.
I'm sure.
Yeah. So they said they didn't really have an explanation. They said oh it's probably epidural, and they said they turned the epidural off at that point, and then my blood pressure was normal. So I guess because they turned it off, I started feeling all the contractions again, and it was
Mhm.
super painful. But I at that point I was like, I'll take any pain over that scary sensation of like just losing consciousness and not
Right,
being able to
right,
do anything about it.
right.
So so yeah, then but at that point I was stuck in bed because I had gotten the epidural. They were doing a catheter and stuff like that. Had the Pitocin going, and I couldn't move, so I could feel all the contractions, but I couldn't get out of bed. I couldn't walk around. I was just like laying there, like just trying to figure out how to deal with it. So
Oh, wow.
yeah, the rest of the night went on, and I was just like trying to watch TV. I was watching all like kids animated movies because I didn't want anything serious or scary or sad.
Right, right.
So, yeah, so that was like the morning went on. This is now Sunday morning, and around 12 o'clock they checked me and said I was complete. And they were like, you can start practice pushing. And I was like, I don't know I don't know how to push. So we did a lot of like, we got like a rhythm going. Like I'd push, a nurse and my husband would hold my legs and like count to 10 and then do it over and over again. And I, like I said, I started that at noon and continued that for the next 4 hours. Like he just would not come.
Oh, my face! If you could see my face right now. Okay. That was a lot. That was a lot.
Yeah, it was just the hours were going by and like he wasn't coming out and I was like just completely delirious. I was literally falling asleep between contractions. Like
Oh
I'd
my
push, fall
god.
asleep, push again, fall asleep, and I couldn't even stop. So it was crazy. I threw up at some point in there, and it just I just felt like defeated because he wasn't coming, and of
Sure.
course I didn't want like a C-section or anything like that, but like I just wanted him out so bad, like it crossed
Right.
my mind, like whatever they have to do.
Right.
Um,
Right.
so they did at one point ask if I wanted a mirror or didn't really ask. They just kind of brought one, I think, for motivation for me. And that helped because like I could see his head and it was there, but it just wasn't coming out. But yeah, close to 4 hours. Fortunately, his heart rate was good this whole time. Like nothing happened that
Mm-hmm.
made an emergency situation. But they brought another OB in to check things out, and he was like, um, up to this point, I hadn't seen any male doctors, and it was a male, and I had always worried about that. And he walked in, and I didn't even care. I was like, I don't care who's in here. But
Just help
he,
me,
I
please.
was like,
Yes.
yeah, just help. He's like, has anyone ever talked to you about vacuum or anything like that? And I was like, I don't know, I don't care. I just want him out. But yeah, so he was like really stretching me, and he said at this point it would be easier to get him out than try to pull him back up through a C-section. So I just like when he came in, I don't know, he just the whole like mood changed, and I got like a last bit of energy to push him out. And when the baby starts getting like really close, like they pull up the table and like everyone starts like scrambling, and I remember seeing that happening, and I just like got this excited feeling because I was like, if they're moving fast, that means something's happening.
Right. Right. Right.
So yeah, so I was pushing. I finally I can hardly remember. Like I said, I was so out of it, but I got him out just around, it was right around 4. So I just hit the 4 hour mark of pushing, and they put him on my chest. Everyone was so surprised. They said he was so much bigger than they thought because I didn't have a huge belly. He ended up being 8 pounds, but I just remember like, oh my goodness, the biggest relief when he came out. But it also like so much like, oh my goodness, like it's just surreal when they give you your baby for the
Yep.
first time.
Yep.
I can't even describe it, but it was amazing. And um yeah, it was just like foggy and wonderful, and like I can remember it, but I just remembered being so worn out, and from the medication and everything, I just like I don't feel like I was completely, I don't know, I was just out of it. But also tore, I had a secondary degree tear,
Okay.
and yeah, it was just rougher than I thought it would be. More
Yeah.
painful than I thought.
Gotcha. Gotcha. And do you feel like people were treating you well and trying to help you, but it was just hard because you just didn't know anything about what to expect?
Yeah, yeah, they were all pretty great. I'm the midwife that actually delivered. I didn't really connect with her. I mean,
Gotcha.
she was distant most of the time. She didn't
Mm,
really check in, and it was mostly just the nurse, who I can't even
okay.
remember at this point. But they were great, and they weren't like quick to jump on like, hey, we got to do a C-section now. They actually gave me 4 hours to push, which is longer than most times. So I am happy with that.
But there wasn't necessarily that like connection there.
Yeah, yeah, I
Yeah.
didn't feel super connected, but
Hmm.
like I said, at that point, it didn't matter. I had my baby, so and he was out.
Gotcha, gotcha, gotcha. So the second time around, you wanted a different experience. So what did you want to be different this time, the second time?
Yeah, so just because of that whole experience, the recovery was like so rough. I remember like I couldn't even change his first diaper. I couldn't physically move out of bed that day, and it took like over 6 weeks to feel like myself.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
yeah, it was just,
Okay.
I guess just because of all the pushing and everything,
Mhm.
it was just a long recovery. I just remember
Mhm.
being so drained and sore for weeks. But
And did
um
you have any support? I'm guessing they told you come back in 6 weeks, and that was like
yeah,
yeah.
and that was it.
Mhm.
And you just
Mhm.
like you take their word for it because that's what they tell you to do. But
Mhm.
um yeah, I even called in a few times because I just didn't feel right. But everything ended up fine afterwards.
Sure, sure. But what I mean, what did they tell you when you called in? Just, "Oh, this is normal." Did they ever offer to see you to
They did offer to see me, and I think I went in earlier. I can't remember. It's so long ago now, but
Sure.
um, yeah, I just didn't feel like myself, especially down there. Like
Yeah.
going upstairs was hard, and but yeah, it ended up, going back to normal and everything. At least after the 6 weeks.
It just took some time.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you were also grieving
Yeah.
too, also. Maybe that had a part of it as well.
Yeah, it was just, it was just a strange time. And I remember, when so like the weeks before my dad passed away, we knew he was going to, and I remember every time we'd walk into his room, he was usually sleeping almost like a baby, and we'd watch to see if he was breathing. Like that was just like the first thing you do to see if he's breathing. So I feel like that transferred over to as soon as my son came out. Like every time I saw him, I was watching to see if he was breathing. It was just a weird thing because it was like so soon
Mm.
after that. So I didn't really struggle with any like depression or anything afterwards. But I know I was just like really, really paranoid about something happening to the baby. And I was like total helicopter mom for
Sure.
like the last probably 4 years of his life up until current.
Yeah, that's one thing we don't, and I'm not, giving you a diagnosis or something. Speaking from my own experience, I had postpartum anxiety and I wasn't
Yeah.
looking out for it. And I think that we under recognize that anxious sort of feeling of, is something going to happen? What's wrong? All
Yeah.
of those kinds of things. Yeah.
Yeah. And just like intrusive thoughts that it's
Mm-hmm.
like, where does that come from?
Yep.
But yeah, it
Yep.
was worse
Yep.
right after he came out.
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. So the second time you wanted something different. So what did you want different for your experience?
Yeah, so I was terrified of getting an epidural, but also terrified of not getting an epidural. So like I didn't want that blood pressure situation again. And
Mm-hmm.
so about 2 years, when my son was about two, we started trying for another, and this time I got pregnant right away. And I was excited, but I was also just like so nervous because like that Labor Day stood out in my mind so strong, and that was like the one thing that scared me about having another. And it wasn't super traumatic, but it was like enough that it just terrified me to do
Yeah.
again. So yeah, I just decided, well, kind of a backstory to her birth. So before we were deciding to get pregnant again, I was out for a walk with my son, and I know this is super random, but like the date, March 16th, 2020, just like popped in my head. And this
Mm-hmm.
was in like beginning of 2019. So I just like wrote the date down, didn't really think about it.
Mm-hmm.
And then ended up getting pregnant. And my due date was March 15th, 2020, the day before that date that I had written down.
Mm.
So yeah, that was pretty cool. And I was just, like I said, really nervous about having the same experience. And I was
Uh-huh.
opening up kind of to some of my friends about it and on social media. And a friend reached out, and she told me to listen to a podcast. And it was mostly, it was all unmedicated births, like God-centered births. It's called Birth in God's
Gotcha.
Presence. They don't run it anymore, but I listened to it, all the old episodes. And
Uh-huh.
so I started listening to that, and I know this sounds crazy, but I had never heard like of like a good birth experience like without
Mm-hmm.
medication. Like
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even know that was possible. And hearing all these stories from women who had like empowering, amazing births without
Mm-hmm.
medication, like it it literally blew my mind. I was like, how is that even a thing?
Right, right, right.
So like I dived in, I listened to these stories nonstop, just filled my head with this stuff, and I was like, if they can do it, like I can do that too. And it's terrifying, but I just learned so much just about your body and about the whole process that I didn't even know before, just by listening to those stories.
Right.
And
Love that, love that. Yeah.
that's mainly what like really changed my mind and shaped my plan for my birth, is just diving into experiences that I didn't, like I said, I'd never even heard before.
Mm-hmm. So you knew this time that you're like, I can't do that epidural thing again. That was too
Yeah.
much for me. So,
Yeah.
so did you do any like childbirth education in addition to that, or take classes or read books, or was it really just hearing the stories that was enough for you?
Yeah, I wish I would have. Like classes like the ones you offer, they sound so amazing. I didn't know about it then, but I wish I would have. But yeah, it was mainly just listening to those stories, and they describe start to finish process of birth, so that I learned so much about all the different phases, stuff that I just didn't know, or maybe I didn't listen to when I was taking hospital classes.
Right,
But
right.
but yeah, it just, like I said, opened up a whole new world of like positive, unmedicated birth experiences that I didn't know you could have. So
Exactly.
I spent the next like few months or last few months of my pregnancy just like filling my head with that, and just I also wrote out. I know you can't plan your birth, not really a
Mhm.
birth plan, but like
Mhm.
birth affirmations,
Yep.
all the things I like wished for my birth. Like you
Yeah.
won't need a C-section, you'll go into labor on your own. Um, just every single detail of my birth, down to even like the time of day I wanted to give birth. Like I was really particular. So
Right, right. I think that visualization is really important actually.
yeah.
And I mean, and it's a tool that actually elite athletes use all the time is like trying to see things all the way through. So I totally get that. And it doesn't mean that it's going to necessarily, you can't guarantee
Hmm.
anything, but that piece is actually really important.
Yeah, and I wrote it down, read it every day. I would repeat it every day. I go for walks every day with my son. I'd just say the things over and over again. And I knew like if it didn't come about that way, I would be okay. But it's just, yeah, it was just putting it there in the forefront of my mind.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
I also made I called it Labor Day playlist with just
Yep.
like empowering worship songs, like my favorite songs, and it's
Mhm.
what I wanted to play during my birth. So, um, yeah, that was kind of how I prepared. Just constantly filling my head with that stuff, and I've like now I know that birth is like almost more mental than physical. I mean, it is crazy physical, but like what you do with your mind ahead of time, it can like make or break your entire birth experience if you're ready or not mentally.
100%, 100%. That's like the very first thing I teach in my class is mindset
Oh,
and how
really?
important it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
for for your birth, 100%. So then, oh, and should I say, did you go to the same practice or did you do a different practice or what did you do this time around?
Yeah, I went through the same practice. And this time, I kind of saw the same. I planned to see the same midwife, or well, I'm sorry, she's an OB, but she doesn't deliver babies anymore. She just does appointments, and it just worked out that I was able to see her pretty much my entire pregnancy, even though I knew she wouldn't deliver. And I just like got really close with her and felt comfortable with her, and it was kind of nice in that way. I told her so many times I wish she would be there to deliver, but
Yeah.
um, yeah, she was amazing. It was just nice to see the same face.
Nice, nice, nice. And then, so then what was your labor and birth like this time, the second time around?
Yeah, so um let's see. So I was due on Sunday the 15th, and that weekend I didn't really feel anything different. I kind of lost my appetite, and but I was like I had said earlier about I that date, the 16th, that I wrote
Uh-huh.
down. I was really leading up to labor. Like I really was determined, not determined. I was more like convinced that I was going to have the baby on the 16th. I even told my mom like, "Hey, be ready on the 16th because in
Right,
case you need
right.
to watch my son." So, and I scheduled my husband off from work, and so anyway, on the 15th, that morning, I was out for a walk. I do, I did a lot of walking. I was really active that pregnancy, but
Yeah.
out for a walk with my son, and we live, like I said, in Amish country, and there's like a bunch of Amish schoolhouses on my normal route that I would take, and of course. When you're pregnant, you have to pee all the time. So I couldn't go couldn't go a mile without having to pee. So I stopped in the Amish schoolhouse bathroom. It's kind of like a porta potty, but like in like a little shed. And I actually like lost my mucus plug out there on my walk in the
Right.
Amish bathroom. So I was like, "Oh shoot!" So I gotta get home. So I was like a mile from the house, and I got home quick and told my husband, and just kind of waited to see what would happen. But nothing really happened. I started towards the evening feeling like a little crampy, and later that night like started getting like a rhythm to the contractions. So
Mhm.
I downloaded a timer and was just timing them to see. But I was like really uncomfortable. I couldn't lay in bed that night. I watched a movie and kind of like couldn't lay down. I was like more on my knees against the couch, just watching the movie. I was trying to like sleep, but they'd keep waking me up, but it was never like enough to get him up. So, yeah, then the morning came and I was kind of frustrated because they were still like 8-10 minutes apart and nothing had changed at all. And this
Right.
was now the Monday, the 16th. And, so I decided to go for a walk, thought maybe that would help a little
Uh-huh.
bit. It was really slow, like, I was just, like, waddling because I was having contractions every few minutes.
Right.
But, as I was walking, I heard someone beep and pull over into, like, a empty lot I was walking by, and it was actually the girl that had recommended that podcast that, like, literally changed my life. It
Stop it.
happened to be her
Stop
driving
it.
by. Yeah. Yeah, I'm serious. She pulled over, and I just couldn't believe it because it was, like, a full circle moment, like,
Oh my,
I've been
yes.
preparing for this birth because of
Yes.
her, and here she is. So, it was so cool. So I told her, "I think I'm in labor, and I'm nervous," and she put her hand on my tummy, and she prayed for me, and that moment, I got, like, the strongest contraction I had yet, and I almost couldn't stand still, like, while she was praying for me,
Right.
and, it was just so cool, and, she drove away, and I walked home, but, like, they were getting stronger and stronger,
Right.
and, at this point, it was, like, noon, and my son usually goes to take a nap. So I put him down for a nap and I was like, if I could just get through his nap, it would be the perfect time. Like I wanted to go into labor after his nap so that like, he's all set for the evening.
Right.
And it happened just that way. He woke up from his nap, we ate, and my contractions were getting closer and I couldn't like talk through them anymore. And I was just like wandering in circles. So I called into the office and they said, well, we have an opening in the next half hour if you want to come. That way you can skip triage. And if you're in labor, we'll send you right over to the hospital.
Right. Right.
So, yeah, I went in, I got checked, and I was so surprised. I was already 6 centimeters.
Okay.
And like, yeah, I was so like blown away because by 4 or 5 centimeters, my first birth, I couldn't function anymore.
Right.
So, I was like, I had done all that at the house and didn't even realize it. So, and it's funny because I went to a different office than I normally did. I went to the main one near the hospital, and the OB that was there happened to be there that day was the one that I had seen for all my appointments. So I got to like wrap up my very last appointment and
Mm.
it was her, and she was so excited, and it was like right when COVID started in March, and she's like, I'm not supposed to touch you or hug you, but I'm going to give you a hug.
Aw.
So she gave me a hug, and yeah, they sent me over. My mom had met at the hospital and everyone stayed outside since COVID. They weren't allowing other people in.
Right.
And so she stayed out just in case it was time to go, and she was going to watch my son. And so they switched everything over, and my husband came into the hospital with me, and we got to skip triage and go right to our baby room. So yeah, and at that point, like they heard I was coming in, and I was like 6 centimeters. So they actually had everything laid out for a hep lock and everything to get ready for an epidural. And I walked in and told them I was not going to get the epidural, and
Right.
they were so surprised. And the nurse was so excited because she said that at that hospital, I think they said like over 90% of their patients get an epidural, and she's
Oh,
like, I don't
wow.
get to see unmedicated births often.
Okay.
So yeah, she was excited. Um, so yeah, I just labored in the room.
Uh-huh.
I remember they, I, like I said, it was like a couple days before the whole country shut down with COVID, and so like my son, was like super super attached to him, and like he'd never been away from me for more than an hour, and they told me that he wasn't going to be allowed to come in to visit us, and I was just like, that wrecked me, and in that moment, like I was completely taken out of my labor mindset and like
Right.
totally thrown off focus because I that just like tore me apart. I
I'm
didn't want
sure.
him to be away that long, and
Yeah.
but I realized like if I'm going to do this unmedicated birth, I need to refocus. So
Uh-huh.
yeah, just spent the next few hours. At this point, it was around like 3 p.m.,
Okay.
3 to 4 on Monday. And yeah, my husband and I, we just hung out in the room. Well, he hung out. I was just like walking around and, going through contractions. We
Yeah.
put my playlist on, and
Yep.
we had the lights dimmed, so it was just
Yep.
like a really nice setting. Um, I like really wanted a peaceful surrounding, and that's exactly what it was. So, yeah, they were monitoring the baby. They were doing intermittent monitoring, so
Uh-huh.
that was nice. I wasn't hooked up. I got to walk around. My favorite place to be was in the little bathroom in the dark in a corner. Just like when I had a contraction, I'd go in there, and they'd be like, where'd she go? But I just liked like being alone. I didn't even like want my husband close by most of the time. I just like, I know some people are really social laborers and they like a ton of people. I would have been okay like just sitting in a corner by myself.
Right, right,
Um,
right.
but yeah, so they were getting worse and worse
Uh-huh.
over the next few hours, and I know at some point the midwife came in and I got to meet her, and I fell in love with her right away. She
Mm.
was like everything you picture a midwife to be.
Uh-huh.
She was so sweet. But she did tell me her shift was over at 7. At this point it was 4 o'clock, and I was about like 7, 8 centimeters. So I knew if I wanted her, I had to get it done fast. um, but yeah, so I just, continued to progress. And one thing with like everything I listened to and heard, I just tried to like remember that and put into practice. So, like just breathing through everything. And I remember when they talked about contractions, handling them, they said like when you get a contraction, your initial reaction is to like tense your body, or when you feel pain of any kind, you just tense your whole body and you like close up. Um, but what really worked, what they talked about and what worked is like when you get a contraction, like you want to tense your body, you just kind of like let go, just like loosen your entire body up. And that's what I did. And it was the wildest thing because like in any other situation when you feel pain you tense, but
Yep.
just like becoming loose, like I could feel myself progressing. I could feel like something happening. It was the hardest thing to do because it was so painful.
Right.
But yeah, just like staying loose and calm, and that was a big thing, just not freaking out. And it didn't even cross my mind once to get an epidural. I didn't even say it. Like I was so determined to do
Right.
this.
Right.
So
Right.
um, but yeah, so closer to 7, they checked me. I was like 9. She said my water bag was bulging. She asked if I wanted to break it, and I said to go ahead because I was at this point like just ready to be
Yeah.
done.
Yeah. Yeah.
So she broke it, and that made me complete. And I at this point I was on the bed. Before that I was like walking around and stuff, but I was on the bed, and they said I was ready to start pushing.
Right.
So I did, and it was it's crazy when when you don't have the epidural and you have no medication in your
Uh-huh.
system, like when you feel a contraction and when you push, it actually like almost like takes the pain of the pushing away in
Yeah.
some way. And
Uh-huh.
I've heard so many women describe it, and it's the weirdest thing. It's just something to work against.
Yep.
So it like I always enjoy pushing because it doesn't take the pain away, but like I don't feel the pain anymore. I'm
Right.
feeling progress.
Right. Right. Right.
So yeah, so I think I only pushed for like 10 or 15 minutes,
Okay.
and yeah, her head came out, and definitely felt the ring of fire. I remember hearing women talk about that, and in that moment I was like, "Oh, that's that's it right there." um had that little thought. And then she's like, "Okay, hold on. We'll push to get her shoulders out and the rest of her." And I don't know why I didn't like listen all the way. I guess she was trying to keep it slow so I didn't tear, but I just like
Right.
gave this huge push and her whole body came out. And yeah, they put her on my chest right away, and uh it was like I can't even like describe, like it was crazy amazing when my son was born, but there was something about this because I was like had no medication. I was so present, and it was just like the most like you hear people talk about the birth high, like that's exactly what it was, like
Right.
just the most intense like joy and relief and like so much love. Like I loved her when she was in my tummy, but the moment I looked at her and she was on me, I could not, like, it was just I was overwhelmed. I was
Yes.
so in love. I just felt so absolutely amazing. And it was incredible. I think about that moment like literally every
I'm
single day.
sure. I'm sure.
Yeah, I didn't tear at all, which I was really surprised, no tearing, and I just felt like I felt on top of the I felt on top of the world.
I
So
bet
it was
you
incredible.
did. And this was on March 16th?
It was on March 16th. So
I okay.
so
So
right around 7 o'clock.
oh my god, I can't. So okay, so not only so the first time you had this experience that was, although it wasn't like, I don't know if that you would say that it was terrible, but it certainly what there was a lot of it that wasn't in your control. It just didn't go exactly how you thought, and then you approached things completely different this time. Got this sign from God, the universe, however you want to put it, March 16th,
Mhm.
that particular date, and then the woman who told you about the podcast, and then her showing up on the day that you went into labor.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my gosh, if this is not
Oh, I know.
divinely ordained, then I don't know what is.
Oh, I know, it really was. It was like, and it was such, for me, it was such a spiritual experience too, like the whole way through, because I did a lot of, um, like I said, mental and spiritual prep ahead of time. So like the whole thing was just so peaceful, and like I
Mhm.
just like literally felt like God's presence in that room. And everyone that came into that room, they even complimented. They were like, "It is so like just they would say like the vibe in here is so like peaceful." They're like, this
Mhm.
was our like favorite room to visit so far this evening. And the midwife that delivered me, she's like, that was my favorite birth. That was so amazing.
Love it.
So
Love
yeah, it
it.
was just like it was amazing.
Just beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. So what was as we wrap up, what was the postpartum period like for you the second time?
Oh my goodness. It was so, so good. Like I felt as soon as I was done, I felt like, okay, I can leave. I can go home right now. Like I can get up out of the bed and leave. Like it was a total night and day from when I had my son, where I couldn't even function. I couldn't stand up. I felt so amazing. And since my son couldn't be there, I wanted to leave as soon as possible. And I guess 24 hours is like the minimum you have to stay.
Mhm.
So I was pushing to leave by 7 o'clock the next night, since she came at 7. And I was great. She was great. She was like picture perfect baby. She passed everything. And so I was pretty much just like waiting for the time to pass.
Right.
I was actually like put her in the little carry walker thing, and at that point you could walk the halls. So I was like doing laps around the halls just because I felt so good. And yeah, I think at this, like thinking back, I should have taken a little easier, but I just felt so amazing compared to my first. But yeah, it was very different than
Awesome.
with my son.
Yeah, yeah, love it. What a beautiful, beautiful story and full circle moment.
Yeah,
I just can imagine how great that felt.
yeah, it makes me want to do it over and over and over again. No, that
Uh,
scares my husband when I say that, but
gotcha. Of course. Yes, yes, yes. Oh my goodness. So just to finish up, what is the one thing or one favorite piece of advice that you would tell other women as they get ready for their birth?
um well, I think that the day your babies come into the world is like the day that you remember more than anything, more than your wedding day, more than anything for me anyway. Like it's
Mhm.
the day I reflect on more than any days of my life. So like on that day, like you gotta like literally, I know it's cliche, you gotta live in the moment and just
Mhm.
like and not fret about things not going your way, because no matter what, the baby will come and it'll be exactly how it's supposed to be. And I heard someone say once, the day your baby comes, it's not your birthday, it's their birthday. A lot of women want things a certain way because it's like, oh, it's my birth, but it's actually their birth. And yeah, just being present so that you can remember it, because you'll miss it when it's over.
Yeah.
Um, but also, yeah, just like I said, the mental preparation is everything. So much more important, or not even more important, just so much more than the physical. It's crazy how much you can change your experience with your mind prep, and like I love the unmedicated birth experience. I know I hear from other women that nurses will say, "Oh, you don't get a gold star for doing that unmedicated," but it is just literally the most like rewarding feeling when you do it. You have your baby and you know you did it like on your own, and you feel like Superwoman.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, um, just one more thing
Yeah.
also, I struggled a lot when my son when I got pregnant, I struggled with like the thought of having another. I was like, how, like, I loved my son so much. I was like, how could I possibly love a second child? And I just want to share with anyone that is expecting another and feels that way, that it's also cliche, but like you will fall in love with your second as much as your first. Like your
Mm-hmm.
heart grows, and I was so worried about like sharing the love, and like I said, now I could do it again and again, and I know I'd have enough love for more babies. So
It is true. You just make more room
mhm.
for more love for sure. Well, where can women connect with you? If if you're open to that, you can say no. You can totally say no. But where can women connect with you if that's an option?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram. I have just a personal account. It's actually my husband and my name together. It's Dan Bekah. But also through email. I don't know if you want me to just leave the email in the show notes page or something like
Yeah, we can do that. Yep.
that.
Yeah,
Okay.
we can do that. Perfect. Perfect. Well, thank you so much for agreeing to come on to the podcast. This story just warmed my heart so much. And I know somebody is going to find it helpful for sure.
Oh, sure. No problem. Thanks so much for having me.
Wasn't that a great episode? Didn't it just pull at your heartstrings how everything unfolded so beautifully for her, for Bekah to have that great birth experience? Love, love, love that story. Now, after every episode, when I have a guest on, I do something called Nicole's Notes, where I talk about my top takeaways from the episode. So here are my Nicole's Notes from my conversation with Bekah. Number one, Bekah mentioned how she really didn't want to get an epidural. She was terrified of epidurals or scared of getting an epidural. And for those of you out there who are listening, and you are someone who is terrified of getting an epidural, you don't like the thought of having a needle in your back, you don't like the thought of not being able to move with an epidural, you are totally normal, okay? Lots of people have those fears and those concerns, and that is a totally normal fear. So don't let anybody make you feel crazy or like something's wrong with you because you're worried about those things. That's normal. That's natural. You can overcome it either by talking through the process and getting the epidural if that's what you want to do, or you can have other options for managing pain like what Bekah did. But please understand that there's nothing wrong with you if you're scared of getting an epidural. Number two, Bekah mentioned how the hospital where she gave birth didn't have a lot of experience with unmedicated birth, and that may be very common. This is something that is important for you to know ahead of time if you're planning an unmedicated birth, so you can be more prepared to manage pain. You're not going to have the same level of support at a hospital that doesn't have a lot of experience managing unmedicated birth. Same thing with a particular nurse that you have. It's ideal to have a nurse who has more experience helping women through unmedicated birth. That's definitely a question that you want to ask ahead of time. In fact, that's one of the questions that I recommend that you ask as part of your birth planning process. In my free online class on how to make a birth plan that works, I go through several questions that you need to ask when you're making your birth plan. This is one of them. And you can check out that free class at drnicolerankins.com/register. All right. And number three, again, there wasn't anything that was particularly bad about the way Bekah was treated, but for her first birth, I mean, in particular. But because she wasn't educated about what to expect during the birth process, it felt overwhelming for her, okay? And this is why childbirth education is so important, and good childbirth education, because she had actually done a hospital childbirth education class, but it didn't quite prepare her for everything that she needed to know and what to expect. When you have the right information, then that is how you're going to feel more informed, more able to deal with things as they come up, and that unpredictable nature of birth. That's exactly why I created the birth preparation course, so that you can be calm, confident, and empowered in the face of that unpredictability and things don't feel overwhelming. It's one of the things that people repeatedly say about the course is that it helped them to know what to expect and how to have great conversations with things and to manage things when their birth didn't unfold exactly as they anticipated. So I'd love to have you inside the birth preparation course too. So you can check out all the details at drnicolerankins.com/enroll. So there you have it. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast wherever you're listening to me right now. And I'd love it if you leave an honest review in Apple Podcasts. That helps the show to grow. And from time to time, I do shout outs from those reviews as well. And if you're wondering how prepared you are to manage pain in labor, take my labor pain quiz. It's a short 7-question quiz that will help you know how ready you are to manage pain in labor. You can take that quiz at drnicolerankins.com/quiz. So that's it for this episode. Do come on back next week. And until then, I wish you a beautiful pregnancy and birth. Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the All About Pregnancy and Birth podcast. Head to my website, drnicolerankins.com, to get even more great information, including free downloadable resources on how to manage pain in labor and warning signs to look out for after birth. You'll also find information on my free online class on how to make a birth plan that works, as well as everything you need to know about my signature online childbirth education class, the Birth Preparation Course. Again, that's drnicolerankins.com, and I will see you next week.